When Adzi found out her husband was with another woman, her heart did not break. It froze. And in that frozen moment, she finally saw the truth. The man she had been fighting to keep was the very thing holding her down. This is not a story about betrayal. It is a story about awakening. A story about what happens when two women stop fighting each other and finally see the man clearly. If you enjoy stories that carry quiet wisdom, life lessons, and truths our grandmothers tried to teach us, subscribe to Echoes of Wisdom and listen closely. Because some stories are not meant to entertain you, they are meant to free you. There lived a young woman named Adzi, whose beauty was the kind that made strangers stop and stare, but whose eyes carried a sadness that no amount of beauty could hide. Adzi was the third daughter born to a man who had prayed for sons. When she arrived screaming into the world, her father had looked at her mother with disappointment so heavy it filled the room like smoke. Another girl, another mouth to feed, another dowry to worry about. Growing up, Adzi learned to make herself small. She learned to cook before she could properly read. She learned to clean until her knuckles ached. She learned that her worth in her father's eyes would only be proven when a man came to take her away. So when Malik appeared at her father's compound one dusty afternoon, wearing a smile that could charm the stars from the sky and speaking words smoother than fresh palm oil, Adzi's family practically shoved her into his arms. Malik was tall and handsome with the kind of face that made women forget their own names. He claimed to be a businessman with connections in the city. He spoke of properties and investments and a future so bright it was almost blinding. Adzi's father was so eager to marry off his third useless daughter that he offered a bride price generous enough to make the entire village whisper. He even promised Malik a position in his trading business, a chance to prove himself worthy of the family. The wedding was modest but hopeful. Adzi wore white and smiled until her cheeks ached because finally, someone had chosen her. Someone had looked at her and decided she was worth keeping. For the first time in her 25 years, she felt like she mattered. But here is something our grandmothers knew, that young brides often forget. A man who is charming before marriage is simply a man who knows how to perform. The real man reveals himself when the performance ends and the ordinary days begin. The ordinary days began very quickly. The first week, Malik woke up at noon. Adzi assumed he was tired from the wedding celebrations. The second week, he woke up at noon again. By the third week, she realized this was not exhaustion. This was simply who Malik was. He would rise when the sun was already high, demand breakfast as if the morning had just begun, and then disappear to meet friends whose names Adzi never learned. He would return in the evening, expecting dinner on the table, clothes washed and pressed, and a wife who asked no questions about where he had been. When Adzi gently reminded him about the job her father had arranged, Malik would wave his hand dismissively and say, tomorrow he would go, tomorrow he would start, tomorrow he would prove everyone wrong. Tomorrow never came. Weeks turned into months, months turned into years. Adzi's father eventually stopped asking about Malik's progress because the answer was always the same elaborate excuse wrapped in charm and empty promises. By the second year of marriage, Adzi had started a small sewing business from their home. She would wake before dawn, stitch dresses and mend clothes until her fingers were sore, all while Malik slept peacefully in their bed like a man without a single worry in the world. When she handed him money for food or transport, he would take it without thanks, as if it was simply his due. When she suggested he find work, he would accuse her of nagging and storm out to visit his mother, who had always told him he was too special for ordinary labor. At night, when Malik rolled over to touch her with hands that had done nothing productive all day, Adzi would stare at the ceiling and wonder how the man who had seemed like her salvation had become her heaviest burden. But she stayed. She stayed because her mother told her that marriage was about endurance, not happiness. She stayed because her father had made it clear that divorced daughters were worse than unmarried ones. She stayed because every woman she knew was staying in her own difficult marriage and pretending everything was fine. She stayed because she did not know she was allowed to leave. And then Malik met Zola. Zola was everything Adzi was not. Where Adzi was soft and accommodating, Zola was sharp and commanding. Where Adzi asked permission, Zola gave instructions. Where Adzi had shrunk herself to fit into Malik's shadow, Zola cast her own shadow so large that men stepped aside when she walked past. At 32, Zola had built a catering business from nothing but determination and sleepless nights. She owned her own car, a shiny thing that made her feel powerful every time she turned the key. She owned her own house, small but entirely hers, every brick paid for with her own sweat. But Zola had a weakness she would never admit to anyone. She was lonely. All her friends had married. Every family gathering came with the same painful questions from aunties who meant well but cut deep. When are you bringing a man home? You are not getting younger. Do you want to die alone? Zola would laugh and say she was too busy building her empire to worry about men. But at night, in her empty house, with her successful business and her shiny car, she would sometimes wonder if she had made the wrong choice, if independence was just another word for isolation. So when Malik walked into her life with his charming smile and his smooth words, Zola's carefully built walls developed cracks she did not notice until it was too late. They met at an event she was catering. Adeze's father, still trying to give Malik purpose, had sent him to deliver supplies. He was supposed to drop them off and leave. Instead, he stayed. He watched Zola command her staff with the confidence of a general leading troops into battle. He watched her handle crisis after crisis without breaking a sweat. He watched her count money at the end of the night, more money than he had ever earned in his life. And Malik, who had always known how to spot opportunity, saw the biggest opportunity of his miserable life standing right in front of him, wearing an apron and smelling like jollof rice. He approached her with his weapon drawn, that smile that had conquered Adzi and countless others before her. "You run this entire operation by yourself?" he asked, his voice dripping with admiration that was entirely calculated. Zola looked at this handsome man with the expensive shoes and the confident stance and felt something flutter in her chest that she had not felt in years. "I do," she replied, trying to sound unimpressed and failing completely.
"That is incredible," he said, leaning closer as if sharing a secret. "I have never met a woman so capable. Most women I know wait for men to build things for them, but you are different." It was manipulation dressed as compliment. It was a trap disguised as flattery. And Zola, brilliant Zola, who could spot a bad business deal from a mile away, walked right into it. They exchanged numbers, they started talking, then they started meeting. Malik told Zola he was single. He told her he ran his own logistics consulting business. He told her he was looking for a partner who understood ambition, someone who matched his drive and determination. Every lie tasted sweet on his tongue. Every deception came as easily as breathing. Within weeks, Zola was paying for their dinners because Malik always seemed to forget his wallet at exactly the right moment. Within months, she was lending him money for business investments that never materialized. Within 6 months, she was so deeply entangled in his web that she could not see the strings controlling her every move. Meanwhile, Adzi continued her life of quiet desperation, sewing dresses and cooking meals and pretending not to notice that her husband came home smelling like a perfume she did not own, wearing shirts she had never washed, carrying himself with a satisfaction she had never given him. She told herself she was imagining things. She told herself that suspicious wives were the reason marriages failed. She told herself that if she just loved him harder, just served him better, just made herself smaller, he would eventually become the man he had promised to be. But our grandmothers also knew this truth. You cannot love someone into treating you right. You can only love yourself enough to demand better. The truth arrived on an ordinary Tuesday. Adaize's cousin had a boyfriend who drove a taxi. He mentioned casually over family dinner that he had seen Malik at a fancy restaurant with a woman who was definitely not Adaize, a woman who drove a nice car, a woman who looked at Malik like he was something precious. Adaize's heart should have shattered. Instead, something strange happened. It froze. She felt nothing. Not anger, not jealousy, not even sadness. Just a cold emptiness that was somehow worse than pain. That night, she could not sleep. She lay beside Malik, who was snoring peacefully, his phone face down on the nightstand like it had something to hide, and she thought about the last 3 years of her life. 3 years of cooking for a man who never said thank you. 3 years of funding a lifestyle he did not earn. 3 years of apologizing for having needs and wants and opinions. 3 years of slowly erasing herself to make room for his ego. What exactly was she fighting to keep? The next morning, while Malik was at his mother's house, which was where he went to hide when he needed fresh lies to tell, Adaize made a decision that would change everything. She was not going to cry. She was not going to beg. She was not going to confront him and give him the chance to twist his way out with pretty words and empty promises. She was going to investigate. She went through his phone when he carelessly left it charging and went to shower. The messages were right there, not even deleted, because Malik had never expected his invisible wife to do anything bold. My love, I cannot wait to see you tonight. You are the only woman who truly understands me. I have never felt this way about anyone before.
Adaize read message after message, each one a knife that should have hurt, but instead felt like keys unlocking a prison door she had not known she was trapped behind. The woman's name was Zola. She owned a catering business. She lived across town in a house Malik described in his messages as our future home. Our future home. Adaize laughed out loud in her empty kitchen. A real laugh. The kind of laugh that comes when you finally see something clearly that has been blurry for far too long. Her husband was planning a future with another woman. He was going to leave her with nothing, and she was sitting here sewing other people's clothes and making his breakfast. No, 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 no. Something shifted inside Adaize that morning. The woman who had spent her whole life shrinking finally decided to grow. She wrote down Zola's address. She memorized it. Then she deleted her traces from Malik's phone and went back to sewing as if nothing had happened. For 2 weeks, Adaize planned. She secretly rented a small room in a quiet part of town, paying 3 months in advance with money she had hidden from Malik. She moved her important documents there one by one. Birth certificate, school certificates, her grandmother's jewelry that was the only thing of value she truly owned. She told no one. Not her mother, who would tell her to pray and endure. Not her sisters, who would gossip. Not her friends, who would alert Malik before she was ready. Then, when everything was in place, she did something that shocked even herself. She went to find Zola. The catering business was easy to locate. It was a small but busy establishment with Zola's name painted proudly on the front. Adaize stood outside for 10 minutes, gathering courage she did not know she possessed. What was she going to say? What could she possibly say? She walked in anyway. Zola was behind the counter, directing staff with the same commanding presence Malik had described in his messages. She was beautiful, Adaize realized. Beautiful and successful and confident. Everything Adaize had never been allowed to be. For a moment, jealousy flickered, but it died quickly, replaced by something unexpected. Pity. This woman had no idea what she was getting into. She thought she had found a partner. She had actually found a parasite. "Can I help you?" Zola asked, her voice professional but curious. She did not recognize Adaize because why would she? Malik had probably described his wife as a distant memory, a mistake from his past, a nothing person not worth mentioning.
I need to speak with you privately, Adzi said, surprised by how steady her own voice sounded. It is about Malik. Zola's face changed. Suspicion, protection, the look of a woman guarding something she thought was precious. Who are you? I am his wife. The silence that followed was so heavy it could have crushed stone. Zola's staff looked up from their work, sensing drama. Zola quickly ushered Adzi into a back office, closing the door with a shaking hand that betrayed her calm facade.
You are lying, Zola said, but her voice was uncertain now. He told me he is not married. He told me he has never been married. Adzi reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. Marriage certificate, wedding photographs, documentation of 3 years of a union that Malik had conveniently erased from his stories. Zola looked at the papers, then at Adzi, then at the papers again. I do not understand, she whispered. Neither did I at first, Adzi replied, sitting down without being invited. But then I realized something important, and I came here to share it with you. I am not your enemy, Zola, and I am not here to fight you for Malik. Then what do you want? I want to thank you. Zola blinked. Of all the things she expected from a scorned wife, gratitude was not on the list. Thank me for what? For sleeping with your husband? No, for agreeing to take him, because I am done carrying him and I needed someone to hand him to before I could walk away free. The confusion on Zola's face was almost comical. She had prepared for screaming, for accusations, for perhaps even violence. She had not prepared for this calm woman who spoke about her husband like he was an unwanted piece of furniture. I do not understand, Zola repeated. So Adzi explained. She explained the noon wake-ups and the endless excuses. She explained the money she earned while Malik contributed nothing. She explained the jobs her father arranged that Malik never showed up to. She explained the promises that never materialized and the charm that covered a complete absence of substance. He has no logistics consulting business, Adzi said. He delivers packages for my father when he feels like it, which is rarely. He has no investments. He has no savings. The money he has been spending on you is either borrowed or taken from the household funds that I earned. With each revelation, Zola's face fell further. The castle she had been building in her mind crumbled brick by brick. But the dinners, she said weakly, the nice clothes, he seemed so successful, established, a man with his life together. Yes. Adzi almost smiled. He seemed that way to me too. When we first met, he was charming and confident and full of plans for the future. I thought I was marrying potential. I did not realize that potential means nothing without action. I did not realize that some men are only good at promising, never at doing. Zola was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was small, defeated. He told me I was the only woman who understood me. He told me I was different from everyone else. He told you exactly what you needed to hear, Adzi finished. That is his gift. He studies what you want and he becomes it. He studied me too. He knew I wanted to feel valuable, so he made me feel chosen. He knew you wanted a partner who matched your success, so he invented a version of himself that seemed like your equal. The tears in Zola's eyes were real. The humiliation on her face was painful to witness. Adzi felt no satisfaction in it, only a deep sadness for both of them. Two women tricked by the same hollow man. What do you want me to do? Zola asked, wiping her eyes. You want me to leave him? Fine, I will leave him. I did not know. I would never have. I know you did not know. And no, I am not here to tell you what to do. If you still want him after knowing all this, you are welcome to him. I am simply giving you the information I wish someone had given me before I wasted 3 years of my life. Zola laughed bitterly. You think I would still want him after hearing all this? I do not know. Love makes people irrational. I know I stayed longer than I should have because I kept hoping he would change. Maybe you have more faith than me. Maybe you see something I do not see anymore. There is nothing to see, Zola said firmly. I was lonely. I was tired of being alone. I wanted someone to share my life with, and he appeared at exactly the right moment, with exactly the right words. I was a fool. You were human, Adzi said gently. We all want to be loved. There is no shame in that. They sat together in that small office,
Two women who should have been enemies, finding instead that they were the same, both targeted by a man who saw them not as people but as resources to exploit, both fed lies tailored to their specific hungers, both deceived by the same golden tongue. What happens now? Zola asked. Now I go home and tell Malik I am leaving. I have already moved my things. I have already secured my future. This is just the final step. And me? That is for you to decide. When he realizes I am gone, he will come running to you. He will cry and apologize and tell you that I was the crazy one, that our marriage was already over, that you are his true love and the only woman who matters. He will say all the right things because that is all he knows how to do. And I should believe him. You should ask yourself one question. In all the time you have known him, what has he actually done for you? Not said, done. What has he built? What has he provided? What has he contributed that was real and tangible and not just words? Zola thought about it. The dinners she had paid for, the loans he had not repaid, the promises of future plans that somehow never became present actions. Nothing, she admitted quietly. He has done nothing. Then you have your answer. Adzi stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. Zola, I spent 3 years angry at women like you, other women, the ones I suspected were taking my husband's attention. I blamed them for his wandering eyes and late nights. I wasted so much energy being angry at the wrong person. Who should you have been angry at? Myself, for accepting crumbs and calling it a meal, for shrinking myself to make room for a man who was never going to grow, for believing that being married was more important than being happy. Every woman who passed through Malik's life was a victim too. He is the problem, not us. Zola nodded slowly, understanding dawning on her face. Thank you, she said, and meant it. No, thank you, because if you had not entered the picture, I might have stayed forever. I might have grown old making excuses for a man who did not deserve a single one. You forced me to see what I had been too afraid to admit, and now I am finally free. Adzi left the catering business and walked into the afternoon sun, feeling lighter than she had in years. That evening, Malik came home expecting dinner on the table and a wife in her usual place by the kitchen. Instead, he found an empty pot and Adzi sitting calmly in the living room, her hands folded in her lap. Where is the food? He demanded, already irritated. There is no food. I have something to tell you. Can it wait? I am hungry. It cannot wait. I am leaving you. Malik laughed. He actually laughed as if she had told a joke. Leaving to go where? Back to your father's house in shame? You think any man will want a divorced woman? Be serious, Adzi. She did not flinch. She did not cry. She simply looked at him with eyes that saw him clearly for the first time. I am not going to my father's house. I have my own place now. I have been planning this for weeks while you were busy with Zola. The name hung in the air like smoke. Malik's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Shock, denial, fear, and finally, the thing he did best, charm. Baby, who told you about Zola? Whatever you had is a lie. People are jealous of us. They want to destroy what we have. You know I love only you. Malik, I read your messages. I saw the pictures. I spoke to her today. You spoke to her? I told her everything. About our marriage, about your habits, about how you have not worked a single day in 3 years, about the money I give you that you spend on impressing her. Malik's charm disappeared like water into sand. In its place rose something ugly. Anger. You had no right, he spat. That is my business, my private life. Your private life? Adzi stood, her voice rising for the first time. I am your wife. I have been funding your private life. Every dinner you took her to was paid for with money I earned sewing clothes until midnight. Every gift you gave her was stolen from the household I maintained alone. You used me to impress another woman, and you think I had no right to tell her the truth?" Malik stepped forward, his hand raised. For a moment, Adaize felt the old fear, the instinct to shrink and apologize and make peace. But then she saw herself clearly. A woman who had carried this man for 3 years. A woman who had walked and sacrificed and endured. A woman who deserved so much better. "Touch me," she said quietly, "and I will scream so loud the entire neighborhood will know exactly what kind of man you are." Malik's hand dropped. "You will regret this," he threatened. "You will come crawling back when you realize no one else wants you." "Maybe," Adaize said, walking toward the door. "Or maybe I will discover that I want myself, and that is enough." She left without looking back. The next few weeks were hard in ways Adaize had not anticipated. Her father refused to speak to her. Her mother cried and begged her to reconsider. Her sisters whispered that she was making a mistake, that a bad husband was better than no husband at all. But Adaize held firm. She expanded her sewing business. She took on more clients. She rented a proper shop space instead of working from home. She woke up every morning in a small room that was entirely hers and felt peace she had never known in her 3 years of marriage. Meanwhile, exactly as predicted, Malik ran to Zola. He arrived at her business with tears in his eyes and lies on his lips. He told her Adaize was crazy, that she had been threatening to leave for years, that their marriage had been over long before he met Zola, that he had stayed only out of obligation. He told her now they could finally be together properly. Now there was nothing standing in their way.
Zola listened to every word. Then she asked the question Adaize had planted in her mind. "Malik, in all the time we had been together, what have you actually done for me? Not said, done." He blinked, thrown off script. "What do you mean? I love you. I am here." "You are here, asking me to fund a future together. But what do you bring to that future? What do you contribute? What have you ever provided that was not just words and promises?" Malik stammered. He was not used to being questioned. He was not used to women seeing through his performance. "I have plans," he said. "Big plans. I just need time and support and—" "Time and support?" Zola cut him off. "Adaize gave you 3 years of time and support. What did you do with it?" "That was different." "How? How was it different?" Malik could not answer. Zola stood, her face hardening into the commanding expression that had built her business from nothing. "Here is what I know now that I did not know before. You targeted Adaize because her family had money. You targeted me because I had success. You do not look for partners, Malik. You look for providers. You look for women who will carry you so you never have to walk on your own." "That is not true." "Then prove me wrong. Show me something you have built. Show me one thing in your life that you created with your own hands and your own effort without a woman funding it." Silence. "That is what I thought," Zola said, walking to her office door and opening it. "Goodbye, Malik. Go find another woman to deceive. I am too busy building my own life to build yours too." Malik left with nothing. No wife, no girlfriend, no woman to fund his laziness. He moved back in with his elderly mother, who still insisted he was simply misunderstood, that the right woman would eventually appreciate his potential. He is still there today, waiting for that woman to appear. 6 months after her divorce was finalized, Adaize was walking through the market when she heard someone call her name. She turned and found herself face to face with Zola. For a moment, neither woman knew what to say. They stood there among the market noise and the crowd bustle, two strangers connected by the man who had tried to use them both. Then Zola smiled. I have been hoping to run into you. Really? I wanted to thank you, again, properly this time. You do not need to thank me.
Yes, I do. After you left my office that day, I spent a long time thinking about what you said. About how we blame other women when we should blame the men. About how we see each other as enemies when we should see each other as survivors. Adzi nodded. She had been thinking about the same things. When Malik came to me after you left him, Zola continued, I remembered every word you said. I asked him what he had actually done for me. He could not answer. That question saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Adzi laughed softly. I cannot believe I almost fought to keep him. I almost saw you as my enemy. I almost wasted energy hating a woman who was just as deceived as I was. We are taught to compete for men, Zola said. We are taught that other women are threats. But the truth is, if a man can be stolen, he was never really yours to begin with. And if a woman steals him, she has not won a prize. She has inherited a problem. You snatched my problem, Adzi said, grinning. And you let me, which saved us both. They exchanged phone numbers. They became friends. Real friends, not competitors. Adzi's sewing business grew. She started teaching young girls not just how to sew, but how to value themselves. She would tell them, never shrink yourself for anyone. Never believe that being chosen by someone else is more important than choosing yourself. Zola met a man, eventually, a carpenter who owned his own workshop and worked with his hands and never once asked her to pay for anything he should have handled himself. They took it slow because Zola had learned that charm without substance was just performance. And Malik? Malik is still at his mother's house. He is still planning to start a business someday. He is still waiting for the right opportunity, the right connection, the right woman to believe in his potential. He is still waiting for someone to carry him. But the women he used to target have learned better. They have learned to ask, what do you bring? They have learned to watch hands, not mouths. They have learned that promises without action are just poetry for fools. Our grandmothers were right all along. When someone snatches what you thought was yours, do not weep, do not fight, do not beg. Look closely at what was taken. If it was truly a treasure, it could not have been snatched. And if it was snatched so easily, then perhaps it was never a treasure at all. Perhaps it was just a problem wearing a beautiful disguise. Let the snatcher have it and walk away free. If this story moved you, take a moment to like it, subscribe to Echoes of Wisdom, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters here.